Today, though, we got a good topic here. We're really going to talk about how to produce more songs in less time at a pro level. And who doesn't want that, right? What is good? Welcome back to the one of these days, man, it's like every other episode I get it and then I don't. What's going on? Welcome to the prolific super producer.
Do you need me to take this one for you?
You just might. Okay, third time's a charm. What is going on? Welcome to the Prolific Super Producer Podcast. There we go. Where we are here in your corner, fellow musicians, fellow song makers, where we're talking about, hey, how to do this whole song music industry thing, maybe even just from your bedroom, right? So here, super producer, we categorize that as somebody who's capable of wearing all parts of the process. You handle the songwriting. You're even recording yourself. Then you're getting inside of your DAW, your Logic, your whatever, right? And you're mixing things. You're making it sound professional. And then, oh, I'd like to get this to be, overall enhanced. Maybe get it a little louder. I'm going to master it too. You're someone that's doing everything. And typically, these parts of the process are actually separated. Like, there's multiple people in, handling each part of this process. But nowadays, with technology, with like all the stuff at your fingertips, you can do all of this yourself. And Tyson and myself, we are living proof that you can do it yourself and you can benefit from it in large ways, not just income, but just satisfaction and overall like knowledge. It's a very cool thing to be a part of when you're able to just have the skill set to handle all these parts yourself. So if any of that sounds like you or something you're interested in, we're so pumped you're here. You're in good company. And speaking of, this whole song making thing, we've just got a free gift for you right off the bat just to show our goodwill, because I know what it's like, and I know Tyson does too. Like, we just know what it's like to not be able to write the songs you want to. Like, you have the best intentions. You got this idea in your head, but okay, how do I translate that from my head into what I'm hearing in my speakers and my headphones, right? I can't do it. There's friction there. If that's you, I created a free guide. Yes, free. No strings attached. You can just go to finishsongsguide.com, and it's just a PDF, friend. Like, that's all it is. It's just 10 pages. You could pull it up on your phone, print it out if you want to get old school like that. But it's just a guide to walk you through making a song from scratch. No idea. No, nothing. All the way to a completed song in just 5 steps. That's it. And it's just do this, do that, do this, do the other thing, and then you're there. So if you're feeling stale in your workflow, you're feeling like you're not making the songs you want to, this year is just getting started, right? You still have plenty of time. Make this year your year. Don't settle. Get after those songs that you want to. Get this guide and start to change the way that you show up creatively to make the songs that you want to. All right? So finishsongsguide.com. It's got your name written all over it. Today, though, we got a good topic here. We're really going to talk about how to produce more songs in less time at a pro level. And who doesn't want that, right? There's a couple ways you can go about this, but a super powerful way to go about this is through this magical thing called outsourcing. Okay? And I'm going to kind of just pause right there. Outsourcing. Tyson, we should probably break that down for people listening. There's a lot of different ideas about it, but how are we going to talk about outsourcing today, just to kind of set the stage for the rest of the episode?
Yeah, absolutely. So outsourcing can be a super powerful thing for your music production process. It'll save you time and potentially even raise the level of professionalism in your music. So that's really what we're after here, is trying to improve our music production by outsourcing. So what is outsourcing? That's the right question. And we need to... so I'm going to define it like this. So it's basically having somebody else handle one aspect of your music production process. That's it. It's very simple. I don't like editing vocals, so I could outsource that and have somebody else edit my vocals for me and then give it back to me, and I pick it up right from there. And so the power of this, right, is I can either what I don't like to do or I'm not very good at, and I can just have somebody else do it, and I can give them a couple of bucks, and then I get it back, and then I can pick up right where I left off. So even though we have the ability to be a super producer, right, I can do all the steps of the process, there are some parts that I just don't really appreciate doing all the time. And so that outsourcing is a powerful way to be able to just hand that off to somebody else, and it clears up my mental, space and my actual energy and my time to be able to do other things that maybe my time is better spent on.
I was going to say, like, you might be thinking, okay, but Nathan, everything you just said in the, top of the episode, we're here for you if you want to do everything yourself. Yes, wholeheartedly. Like, we planted that flag. We were all about being able to do it yourself. But we also know the value of outsourcing. So it's like, why would I want to outsource if I'm doing everything myself? Well, there's a couple of reasons, and you may not need to, but it could also be, the reality could be that outsourcing might just be like the perfect thing to add to your workflow to free you up. And so our goal today is to kind of like, showcase outsourcing for what it is, share our experiences with, benefiting, well, pros and cons from attempting to outsource and pass parts of the process off to other people, so that you can decide. You know what I mean? Like, you can decide. That's the whole point, is to give you the freedom to just make yourself a better creative and make yourself a better songwriter. Because isn't that the goal, right? Like, outsourcing is just a means to the end. Being a bedroom producer is a means to the end. What I assume, if you're listening, is to get the song done, get it out there, to be able to share it with people, whether that's personally or professionally. So, Tyson, why don't we just talk about, okay, so why should you outsource, right? I think self-awareness is probably a big thing that comes to my mind to start this off, like self-awareness of what you're good at, right? Because if there's a lot of parts of the process, just because there's a lot of parts to do and you do all of those parts does not mean you are equally crushing it in each of those areas, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I would put it this way. So, a good way of viewing outsourcing, or like these, what we're going to refer to as sweet spots, right? It's like where you naturally are inclined already, where your skills and talents truly lie. So, for example, I would say Nathan, he's really good at songwriting and top lining, so writing lyrics and melodies to songs. So that's his really sweet spot. So in order to maximize his time there, he might outsource other parts of the process, like mixing and mastering, where they're not his sweet spot. Versus myself, I'm probably the opposite, where I really struggle to write lyrics and melodies sometimes, but I am really good at the back end part of mixing and mastering. And so my time is better spent mixing and mastering rather than maybe even writing lyrics for my song. So I might bring somebody else in and co-write with me to, speed along the process, or even just outsource that entirely to have somebody else write lyrics, which I can refine on my own time. So that is an example of outsourcing. And really what we want to instill with this episode is looking at yourself realistically. And looking at, and having the self-awareness to know what parts of the process you are or are not really good at. And I like to come back to an example that I like to tell people about mastering. So a lot of people think mastering is like, oh, it's like, it's such a, short process, and it's, the specialized skill, but it's like not that hard, right? But at the end of the day, like, each of these separate parts of the process is a skill. And to get better at any sort of skill, you need to iterate on it. You need to practice it, right? Yeah. Just like if I want to be, a rock star guitar player, then I need to practice playing my guitar a lot, right? It's the same thing with these other, even more technical skills like mixing and mastering. You need to practice those. And so, using mastering as an example here, if I am a mastering engineer and I'm mastering on average 7 to 8 songs a day, and you're being a super producer, producing your own music, and you're, say, producing 2 songs a month, you get 2 iterations out of master every month. Yes. And I'm getting 8 times, 20 or something like that, whatever that ends up being. 160 songs that I could master in a single month comparatively to you. So with that being said, who do you think is going to be better at mastering songs?
Yes.
Naturally, the person who does it more. And so that's kind of the level of, quality that we can expect from professionals in the industry. Is if they specialize in something, they're probably better at it than you. And so outsourcing can be really helpful to raise the quality of your music, because inherently you can't be that good at everything. You can be good at all of it, but you can't be excellent at all of it. Yes. And so that's kind of the self-awareness in reality. And so the longer you do it, obviously the better you get at all of it. But at a certain point, like, there's just personality traits, there's just the way your mind thinks that probably holds you back from being excellent at even one of these areas. Anything to add there, Nathan?
Yeah, totally. I think that's probably the biggest part of this conversation. I think that, we can be a little blind, especially if we're doing all parts of the process ourselves. This is definitely me and my story, is like, okay, like Tyson was saying, you could be good at all parts of the process. And if you are, in fact, good at all the parts of the process, there can be somewhat of a compounding effect as a bedroom producer, as a super producer, where, the accrual of all of your goodness in these areas can make a good song. Like, it really can. Even if the mixing could have been better, it's okay, because really your songwriting shined in this particular song. You know what I mean? Like, there's different parts of the process that can kind of outweigh each other. So for me, it's like, I've had to reflect on, okay, all these parts of the process, what is the easiest? Maybe this is where you start. And if you're trying to think about the conversation of outsourcing, you know, you would want to keep your sweet spot. That's not the thing you give away, right? You want to keep the thing that's probably easiest for you. What's the easiest part of the process? Is it programming instruments? Is it mixing? Is it mastering? Is it songwriting, melody? Like, think of the part of the process that's always quickest, because that part of the process just might be doing the heaviest lift to make your songs digestible with a lot of people. So that was straight up my story. Like, I can mix, I can master, certainly not the best, you know what I mean? I can write a good song, and I can think of some production to complement the story. So for me, I had to get real, like, serious and be like, okay, I'm gonna go for it with my songwriting and production, right? With my melodies, all that kind of stuff, because I know that I'm not coming like fully, you know, what's that? I'm not coming with a stacked deck. I don't have a stacked deck when it comes to mixing and mastering, right? So I've been able to have songs placed in films and TV shows and all kinds of stuff. I believe, as I'm looking back now, I believe it's because the mixing and mastering was just good enough, when in reality, 80% of the song was really being carried by the story that I told, the way I sang it vocally, the way I performed it, the production that was there, not because my mixing and mastering was perfect. It didn't need to be perfect, because this other stuff over here, my sweet spot, was carrying most of the weight. So I just think it's a helpful conversation to really get real with yourself. And if you enjoy mixing, like I'm like that, I enjoy mixing. I enjoy nerding out and reaching for things. But I know that that's not my strongest suit. I can do it, but I can't do it great, you know, and that's just okay. So I love what Tyson brought up about this conversation of, okay, if you, what would it look like? What would your creative week look like if all you had to worry about was showing up and doing the thing that comes easiest to you? Huh. Well, now, yeah, you're probably saving a lot of time, for sure. You could probably pump out more songs than you typically could right now, which isn't good or bad, but it just frees you up, even the mental space. If the goal isn't like, oh, I want to make a lot of songs, it's like the mental space of, I just need to focus on this. And like Tyson said, if you are practicing and honing in your sweet spot, you're accelerating the rate that you're going to get better at it, as opposed to just touching it every so often because you're completing a full track. So if there's anything that you want to add there, Tyson, but I think that's probably the crux of the conversation, is you have to be self-aware. Otherwise, you don't know what to outsource, right?
Yeah.
If you need to. Yeah.
Definitely. And I would like the analogy that Nathan had mentioned when we were outlining this episode, which was the Avengers, right? So if you think about the Avengers team, we're creating this superhero team that's going to solve these massive problems. And so, like, translating that to music, it's like we're developing a team to then create pro level songs, and it's so much easier to do that with a team, because for example, like if the Hulk decided to try to use Thor's hammer, it's like it doesn't work,
it's
right?
Not for
like
you. Yeah.
Yeah, he, even though Hulk is really strong, like he can't pick up the hammer because he's not a god, right?
Yeah, right.
He's not worthy or whatever it is.
Yes. It's like, dude, you're good at smashing things. Just do that. Do what you're good at. You know, it's like, yeah.
Right, exactly. So like if you're an excellent top liner, then just write lyrics and melodies like that. Just do that. Versus if you're a great mastering engineer, then just master like that. It's pretty simple. But that being said, like obviously there's more to this conversation than just just focus on what you're good at, because you're probably thinking in the back of your mind, like I am, like, but all that other stuff is expensive to outsource, right? Yeah. And so that's definitely a conversation that will be, or that's a part of this conversation that we're going to be covering a little bit later, but I did want to just address that. Say, yes, there are other considerations to this process of outsourcing. But I think the Avengers is a great example of, how to view this, of like, if you're not, great at, hitting things from a distance because I can't throw my hammer, I might as well have other people do that, like Thor, for me.
Yes. And like Iron Man's not upset that he doesn't have a shield like Captain America. He's cool with his lasers. Like everyone is comfortable in their lane. And so I think that at its best, Why should you outsource? Well, what if you did? What if you assembled your own Avengers and like you got everyone rocking in their own part? You know, in theory, you're going to have a better song because everyone is in their sweet spot, which not only means things can move quicker, but it also means that you have different filters and creative input for your song where it's not just you. And while there's a lot of pride there, this was a big thing for me. It was hard for me to think about outsourcing because I loved that I did everything myself. You know, there's a conversation there, and I think you should be proud of that because not a lot of people can. But it might also be worth, you know, it can also be a lonely road, you know, it's just you in your bedroom once again. It's you and your software once again. This is probably different. Like I'm talking like this now after 15 years of lone wolfing it, you know, like for me, I know that the next step that I want to take is to kind of refresh my workflow by collaborating with other people and having other brains in here. So if you're just starting, I mean, hey, just keep getting your reps in. You know, we're not necessarily saying that wherever you are, you should outsource. It's just like, hey, this has been helpful for us. We've experienced this. It could be an option for you. If maybe you're frustrated trying to do everything yourself, then hey, why don't you just let go of what's, you know, giving you so much friction and focus on what's making it easy for you? I just think it can be helpful, and I like that Avengers analogy. Like, who doesn't want their own team? You know, like who doesn't want a squad to be in it where it's not just yourself? There's something fun about that.
Yeah. So with that in mind, like let's lean into why we want to outsource. So not only you have your own sweet spots that you should, you know, try to emphasize as much as possible and then utilize other people's sweet spots to fill in where you're lacking. And so that's like the first level of this outsourcing conversation, right? So it's like ultimately you can actually have a better, higher level, more professional product. Another kind of helpful data that I actually found in relation to this is I looked up the average number of writers and producers on Billboard Top 100 hits.
Interesting.
Okay? So get this. The average number one, or I think it was top 10 hit on the Billboard Top 100 had an average of 4 writers and 2.4 producers.
Oh my goodness.
And
that's a lot of
the
people.
average on the top 100, so like all the way down to 100, had an average of 2 producers and 4 writers.
Wow.
So this goes to show like the power of collaboration is ultimately going to increase the level of quality of your product as long as you're collaborating with people who are either at your level or above your level. And I think that goes back to one of my, you know, biggest, I guess, encouragements to independent artists or super producers is find out your blind spots. Because everybody has blind spots and you need to be able to know what those are or have somebody point them out to you to be able to fill those blind spots and ultimately raise the level of your project. Some people are just so close to their mixes, for example, they don't know that their mix isn't good. They're so close to the song that they just like have blinders on. And ultimately that's going to hamstring the success of your song if you can't actually look at your song objectively.
Yes.
And I'm not saying it's easy to do, but it's necessary to do if you want to achieve professional, commercial success with your music.
Yeah.
So I think adding that like blind spot part in is also really powerful. Obviously having other people to have creative input for your song as well. Like, you know, these average, like, why are there 4 writers for a single song? That seems ridiculous, right? But they're like all accentuating each other's gifts of writing to be able to then ultimately end up with a better project in the end. So it's not just you in your own little echo chamber. You have like other ideas. It's like when you get in a room with other people and, you know, you're having a discussion about something and I could, you know, regardless of what the discussion is about, if it's like a philosophical discussion, for example, and you get in the room and you start saying something, it probably sparks another idea in somebody else, and then whatever they say and their tangent that they take it on, like then you think of something even completely different, whereas you would have been stuck at the first thought if it had just been you. So that's kind of the value, if that makes sense, of multiple writers, multiple creatives on a single project. Even if it's not in real time like that, you can definitely experience that over time. So if we go back a few episodes, we reviewed one of my songs, and that happened to me because I had outsourced part of the project. It was the lead guitarist to my buddy Nate, and Nate had sent me some lead guitars that were way cooler than anything I had come up with or could come up with because I'm not that good of a guitarist. frankly. And so he had added this extra layer of creativity to the project that otherwise wouldn't have been there. So ultimately, that's the power of outsourcing. And I think we have one more point here which is diving into, if you want to have commercial success, so basically you want to make money from your music, you need to have a different mindset around your music in order to truly be successful. So I don't know if you want to start taking this one away, Nathan.
Yeah, no, for sure. So this is like the territory we're about to go in is it can feel a little hard if you're, because we're kind of separate a little bit the art. We're gonna like tug it, or like kind of separate the art from the business side of things, and because those are actually two different worlds. They can coexist, but professionals have a different mindset. They have something called like a business mindset, and I feel like that's such a cliche term in today's landscape, but you know, like it's true. Like a business mindset, and this just means, okay, you're putting on your CEO cap, right? You're taking off your artist feeler hat, and you're putting on your CEO cap, and you're looking at this music thing that you're doing, right? And you are starting to filter through different things. You're trying to think about what's the highest return on your time. This is how business people think, right? Because they understand that time is valuable. Some people say that time is even more valuable than money, right? So they're thinking about, where am I putting my energy, right? What's the result of the energy that I'm using right now? Is it satisfactory results? Do I want better results? Right? Like, you're just thinking about your system from a 50,000 foot view of, like, you know, you want to try to get the highest leveraged activity. You want to look at the thing that's going to give you the highest bang for your buck. And that's kind of where this conversation of outsourcing comes in with this whole music thing. Even though we're talking business terms with music stuff, it's like, okay, if I sit down, how long does it take me to do a song all by myself? You know, you're just having this conversation with yourself, a little Gollum and Smeagol action. You're just like, how long does it take me to do this? Oh, well, gee, it takes me like, I always knock out like vocals, like melodies. Those come so easy to me. Like that's always super fast. Lyrics are probably after that. Production. Production. Okay, when it gets to drums, dude, drums is what's slowing me down. And then when I'm trying to mix them, dude, I can never get them to sound. It's like, and you just start to realize, here's the clinks in the chain, right? And so a CEO is probably going to, the people who are doing really good at the melody, like the melody department, you know, in the music business, y'all just stay right there. You don't need to be messing with the mastering people. You know, like, hey, you just hang there. We're going to find some people. We're going to send out some or go through some job applications. Let's try to fill up the mastering department. And if we can, ideally, let's get people in there for mixing and there for production, because I just want you to rock it and stay in your lane, so that the whole business can move more efficiently, you know, and everyone benefits from that. So that's like a little bit of a long-winded analogy, but I think that's helpful to think about as a creative who wants to take your music seriously. And especially if you got professional ambitions, it's kind of worth starting to think like that and adopting that kind of mindset. I think you have a good story along these lines, right, Tyson? Like, maybe?
I don't know if I do.
Okay. I was looking at Motown, Berry Gordy. I didn't know if that was a line.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I guess I have an example from the music industry that you can kind of rely on as like a true, you know, version of outsourcing and what it could potentially look like. And so, and in its extreme, I think the best example we have is Motown. So Berry Gordy is the guy who formed Motown Studios. It was in Detroit, and they produced a ridiculous number of hits. They were just unreal in how successful they were. But the interesting part about Berry Gordy is that Berry Gordy didn't do anything on his music. He didn't write. He didn't record. He wasn't an engineer. He didn't play any instruments. He didn't sing. He didn't do anything. But he actually was doing something. What was he doing? He was producing. He was the ultimate example of what a real, true, like, producer should be. He is the stereotype, or not stereotype. He is the epitome of a real producer. There we go. And a producer assembles the team. He brought in session musicians. He brought in engineers. He brought in the artist. He brought in the talent that actually created the sound that Motown had. And so while he didn't actually do anything on the record, he was still a central part of Motown's success because he assembled all the people that then collaborated on those projects to create magic.
Yeah.
And so he's the best example. Another more modern example is Rick Rubin. So Rick Rubin doesn't know how to use a DAW, doesn't know how to use a console, doesn't know how to really write. He doesn't know how to sing. He doesn't know music theory. He doesn't know anything except for he knows vibe. Like that's his secret, right? I mean, if you listen to any interviews from Rick Rubin, like that's what he says. He's like, yeah, it's just like I sit in the back and like some people think I'm asleep, but I'm really just like I'm feeling the room. Like, and if something's off in the room, then I might like say something or stand up and try to do something. It's like
amazing.
He almost doesn't do anything. He naps all day, but because he's in the room, he produces hit records. Like it seems like this really weird skill of being able to recognize when something is off, but it's so powerful because he's looking at it from an outside perspective. And Rick Rubin might be a little bit on the like super creative, flowery side, which I don't lean towards. Maybe other people get it more than I do. But at the same time, you can't deny his like impact on modern music today. It's just incredible what he's done. So taking those extreme examples, obviously we're probably not going to be outsourcing everything in our music production process. We're not going to have somebody else sing our vocals. We're not going to have somebody else write our lyrics necessarily if we want to keep that in-house, right, in our business. But there is a level here of what I refer to as the real artist, of what does an artist, if you're trying to produce your own music and have an artist project that's successful, what do you specifically need to do? So you look at your entire company, so you, and all the various hats that you have, and think about which ones do I have to absolutely do as the artist, okay? So, for example, I have to sing on my songs. If I have somebody else sing on my songs, it's not really my song anymore, right? So I have that was like a check mark. Yep, I have to do this. Do I have to write my own lyrics? Well, I don't necessarily say I have to write my own lyrics. I think I have to have input onto my lyrics though. So I'm okay bringing in a co-writer, but I still want to be intimately involved in the process to make sure that this song is still authentic to me and my brand and stuff. So it's like a half check mark. Like, I kind of have to do this, but I can also have help on that process. Now let's use the other example of mixing and mastering. Does anybody know after the song is released that you didn't mix and master your song? No, like people don't care. People don't care if you mixed and mastered your song. One of the best modern examples that I have of this is Tom MacDonald. He is famous for doing all of the production himself, but yet he doesn't actually mix and master his music. So he produces it, right? He puts all the instrumentals together. He writes his lyrics. He sings on it and raps on it, but he doesn't do the mixing and mastering. And so like he's chosen, like that is part of the part of the process that he's outsourcing. And so he is effectively a super producer, but yet he's just not doing that last part because he doesn't need to. And it turns out a higher quality and he can write more songs. So we've kind of covered all like the reasons why you should be outsourcing, right? So you're able to have higher leverage activity. So basically you can get more done at a higher quality by outsourcing and focusing on your sweet spots and having other people focus on their sweet spots on your music. So Nathan, let's transition. Why should you not outsource? So let's kick us off on that conversation.
Yeah, totally. So why you shouldn't outsource, here's kind of where I would start. I would say like where you should not outsource your sweet spot. So maybe that's just worth saying. Like if you're thinking about outsourcing and you want to be efficient, love that, way to go. But a way to really botch that up is to give away the very thing that comes easy to you, right? But it doesn't make any sense. So I feel like that's common sense, but I just want to say it out loud that that's not going to be as efficient as you might think it is. And it's not going to be fun, honestly. Like this music stuff should be fun, like we're talking about business and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, this should still be a fun thing for you. So don't give away the thing that's life-giving for you in your process. But I also think a little sneaky one is you shouldn't outsource if you're not quite ready to give up some control. Like if you've got control issues, speaking as a recovering control issue issue person. Oh wow, geez. What, hey, as a fellow one of those people, it's like it can be tough because because to outsource really means giving. It means letting go of something that you once had control over. And again, you're still the artist. Like, you still are. I hope that you're still going to have the final say on if something comes back to you, and you can say, "Oh, that doesn't quite sound like how I wanted," or like you can still maintain that kind of control. But you have to let go of the process, and I think that that's the hard part, at least for me, with outsourcing. It's like, I think you should outsource when you're ready and you're okay with letting go of something and not having the control that you once did for the sake of something better, ideally, right? Because hey, you're not handing this off to a citizen of New York. You're handing this off to Captain America, right? You're handing this off to Hulk. You're handing this off to Black Widow, right? Like, and so Black Widows probably wouldn't, attack certain things or scale a building the same way that Iron Man would. But does that mean that they're both like not good? No, it just means, hey, they accomplished the same goal in a different way, a different style. So I just think you got to be willing to let people kind of do their thing, because here's the reality: no one is you. You can link up with people who are close, who share similar instincts, but at the end of the day, everyone's their own person and they're going to go about things their own way. So that's kind of something that I think kept me from trying to outsource for quite a while. Is just like, I would rather control the mix because I know exactly how I want it to sound, as opposed to trying to trust it to someone else who maybe it'll sound even better. It probably would sound even better, if they were in their sweet spot and that's what they did. So I don't know what you think about that, Tyson, but I think that's part of the conversation is, yeah, you probably shouldn't outsource if you're not ready for that, because then you're probably becoming less efficient. If you're going back and forth with your mixing engineer like 27 times, or with the production, it's like now you're not achieving, you're clunking up your system even more, right? Because of all the communication you have to do. So
Yeah, and recognizing that, outsourcing can come with its own cost, right? Of like, we're allowing somebody else in on our creative vision and project, and they can throw a wrench in there and really screw up your project if you're not careful. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to have a lot more tips on how to outsource next episode. So stick around if it's already there, or just wait for next week because it's going to be there, which is going to be a great conversation of our experience, having learned on both ends of the spectrum, being hired to do stuff and also hiring others to do stuff. Like, there's a lot of pitfalls and red flags that we can watch out for when doing that. But at the end of the day, recognizing that there is a cost to outsourcing, not just financially, but also in your time. Like, you have to communicate your creative vision. Like, if you can't do that efficiently, then it's not worth outsourcing. You should just do it yourself. And also recognizing that it's really good to also learn all the steps of the process. So you should know enough to be dangerous at everything so that you know how to communicate that to others. And that's another part of that conversation as well. So that being said, obviously, if you're not ready to outsource, or if you don't think that your songs are at a level that they are going to give you a return, that's also when you should not outsource. Because if, my songs are going out there and they're getting 100 streams, I'm not getting enough traction in my career to warrant needing to outsource.
Yeah.
But the trick is understanding if I did outsource, I might be able to achieve 10 times more than that. So there's like this level of, again, goes back to the self-awareness discussion of, if I'm aware that maybe my mix is really hamstringing the success of my songs, I should outsource that. Or if I'm just not developed enough as an artist, as a writer, to be able to produce songs that are even worthy of getting more than 100 streams, then I should just keep iterating on over here on my writing until I'm good enough, and then I can either do it myself or outsource it or whatever. So again, take some objectivity, take some self-awareness to figure out where at the stage is kind of getting messed up. And the first place that I would look at is the writing itself, because a good song, even with an okay mix and master, will still go really far, versus a bad song with a great mix and master won't go nearly as far. So
100%.
Again, don't rely on those parts of the process to save your song, because they won't. But I'm kind of getting a little off track here. Let's come back here. So the last point that I want to talk about here is, even if you're not ready to give up control, you're not emotionally ready to give up control, sometimes it's best to be pushed off the cliff. And proverbial, of course. I'm not going to physically do that. But
yes, come on.
The idea here is that sometimes we've gotten in a rut creatively, or just we've never outsourced before, so we're really scared to like hand off our song baby to somebody else, right? It's like having somebody else watch your kid can be really stressful because I don't know what they're doing with my kid, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So you want to be able to trust that person enough to be able to hand off your song baby to them and trust that they're going to treat your song baby right. Recognizing that your song baby can always revert back to its former area, whereas a physical real baby cannot. But at a certain point in time, like, parents need to go do stuff without their child, and they just need to take that leap of faith at some point in time, trust somebody else to take care of their kid long enough to be able to go on a date night or, do a necessary adult thing that they need to do. It's the same type of idea with music as well. At a certain point in time, you might just need to just take the leap, get pushed off the cliff, and just try it out. Again, there's really kind of no risk other than the time you spend outsourcing it and the money that you spend to hire somebody. But it's worth experimenting at some point in time of seeing what works best for you in your process, and ultimately you might end up with way better results than you ever thought possible.
I think that, this is kind of why we wanted to split this up into kind of two conversations, because it's really a understanding outsourcing thing. And really, because you kind of have to decide if you want to do it in order to warrant a conversation of how to do it. And there's a lot of nuances in this too. So like really, take this episode to heart and do some soul searching. And just like Tyson said, there's also no rules. Like there's no, just because you say you're going to outsource doesn't mean that you're forbidden from ever doing anything yourself again. Like you get to just choose, and you can just like take it a little bit at a time. And hey, I'm just going to try mastering. Hey, let's just get that off my plate and see how that goes. Oh, that kind of went well. Let's try it with mixing or whatever you're, around your sweet spots. Like you can just take it a song at a time. It doesn't have to be anything crazy or big, because I do understand I understand the like it's hard to let go. It's hard to try something new, especially when there's money involved and there's other people involved. But I would encourage you to have a growth mindset and choose positivity and choose to look on the bright side, and kind of as we'll get to in the next episode, like kind of give people a reason, or let people give you a reason not to work with them, and that kind of stuff. So if you think that this whole conversation has been beneficial and you think that, okay, I want to give this a shot, definitely check out the next episode, because we're really going to be getting super duper tactical, less kind of philosophical as we did here, of like literally how to reach out to people, pricing, what to expect, all that kind of stuff. So but I would encourage you to at least try it, like Tyson said. Maybe just push yourself off the cliff in a little area to see what it feels like.
All right, so if you're listening to this podcast, then you're probably already producing and mixing your own music. And if you're unable to get that professional sheen or quality or vibe for your songs, then I want to let you in on a little secret. Most mixers are trying to compensate their lack of professional mixes by getting more plugins, by using more advanced tips or tricks or techniques in their mixes, or relying on buying more professional gear in order to compensate for their lack of quality mixes. But in reality, most mixers' core problem is actually mixing subjectively, or approaching mixing from just a creative mindset entirely. Obviously, mixing is still a somewhat of a creative skill. It's actually far more objective than most people realize. Because if we think about it, everyone agrees on what a professional mix actually is. If that weren't the case, then it would be an entirely subjective field. But in reality, mixing is actually incredibly objective, because everyone agrees on what a pro song sounds like. And so mixing objectively can actually help you avoid being your own worst enemy inside of your mixes, and ultimately allow you to just check all of the boxes that a professional mix should check, and then your mix will sound objectively professional. And so if you're mixing your own music and you're motivated to actually learn the objective skill of mixing, and if you want to ensure that your music sounds pro, then I would love to help you out by teaching you the 5 objective standards that everybody is judging your mix by, and how you can use objective mixing to solve those 5 problems inside of your mix, and then also how to do all of that in under 3 hours per song without pro gear, premium plugins, or utilizing templates or presets. So this is something that piques your interest, then go to theobjectivemix.com to order my brand new book, The Objective Mix. This will teach you how to mix objectively professional mixes every single time you sit down to mix. This provides you with my entire mixing workflow, along with all of the breakthrough lessons that I've learned in the last 16 years of mixing music. So if that is interesting to you at all, then again, go to theobjectivemix.com or click the link right below this video. Can't wait to see you on the inside. So with that, let's get back to the podcast. With that said, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.